Hi everyone, Elle Hackney here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, where I like to speak to everyone in the book world, whether they be authors, illustrators, podcasters, industry professionals. And today I have an author with so much heart and so much to give our book community and children everywhere. Please welcome Sarah Surgey.
Hello, hi.
Sarah, I really want to talk about this special book coming to Australia called
Yes,
The Heavy Bag. And I understand it has been released elsewhere. Please show me if you have it there.
I do. This is the Australian edition.
Oh,
So this is, yeah, the cover looks quite different. And there's new illustrations inside as well by the same illustrator, Larissa Ivankovic. Um, but yes, so this is the Australian edition. This is the US edition. So there's been quite some changes to it. Um, but the story is still the same. I'm really excited for the heavy bag to come out to Australia.
please tell me how you came up with this amazing story.
So the heavy bag is kind of worked around this metaphor of carrying this heavy bag of emotions, and it first came about in the pandemic, which does feel like such a long time ago. But it was kind of, 3.5 years ago. So I was a writer for just sort of magazines and things, sort of writing content for other people. And the pandemic hit and we all got locked down. And I'd kind of briefly had some ideas that I was sort of working on. And one day someone just said to me, this pandemic, everything just feels so heavy. And I was like, yes, it does. And that's quite often how book ideas happen. Someone says something, and because of our creative brains, it kind of ignites something totally different to us to what that person in the conversation was meaning. And the heavy bag really came about from there. And I visualized, first of all, this little girl, very dark hair, walking through the wilderness with this really heavy yellow bag on. And then the story kind of starts to unfold there because she meets people along her journey. And it's all about helping children to understand that it's good to talk. It's good to talk about our emotions, and it can just make us feel a little bit lighter. So it was just a really kind of simple storyline with this journey. Um, but then the actual journey around the book just kind of took off and went crazy.
Did you expect it to have such an impact?
No, not at all. And originally my idea was because everything was on lockdown, so you kind of couldn't publish books in the normal traditional way. But we had a printer who were up the road and on like this industrial estate, so middle of nowhere, and they were still printing things, boxes left outside, masks on, and just send your books through. So it's all quite crude, actually. I just had this little book made up, and I thought, well, okay, I could maybe offer it to some schools. Everyone's on lockdown, but I know that a lot of lessons been done online and virtually, and it just kind of grew from there. And ended up going into all primary schools, well, most primary schools across the UK because the ELSA uh, Society had picked it up at one of their meetings. I'm not sure if you have ELSAs in Australia or anywhere else in the world, but in the UK we have ELSAs, who aren't from Frozen. They are
Just to
emotional support,
clarify.
literary assistants, and they're in schools. And it is quite a new thing, but they help children with different emotions and feelings and situations in their lives through the power of books. So it was picked up, and that was the first kind of rollout from what my intentions were, that it went into the primary schools across the UK.
Because you had this idea with lockdown, and you had an idea of a girl with dark hair and a yellow backpack. And so when it came to talking to the illustrator, did you sort of say that? Because I understand with books, it's a shared dream, isn't it? Like you've got the words, they've got the visuals. How did that collaboration go? Because it seems like it's all come out how you envisioned.
Yeah, so again, not keep harping on about it, but because it was the lockdown, it was very different to kind of, working with illustrators. And I found this illustrator, and I actually found her on Etsy, which again, I don't even think I was particularly on there looking for illustrators. And I just saw um, this account of this illustrator, and she had samples of her work. She was based in Serbia, and there was some very amazing sort of real European style illustrations of some children's books which she'd illustrated for. And I was just like, wow, I absolutely loved that. And so I spoke to her and I sort of told her my vision. And she said, okay, let me just send you through some examples of what I'm seeing. And I saw it and it was just amazing. It was exactly what I was thinking. Because although I was very specific in, like the very dark hair and the yellow backpack, I also wanted it to be able to kind of sit with all children everywhere. So she brought that together, and then she started bringing in the rest of the story, and it just worked. As soon as I saw it, I thought, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I love the different covers as well, and I love how the same illustrator has been with you on the entire journey. I mean, that just must feel so unreal because I haven't had myself any
Yeah.
books go international, but I have seen other authors' books being international, and the only change is the translation in the words. You've got a
Yes.
different cover per country.
Yes.
How did that
Yes.
work
Yeah.
out?
So yeah, I mean that was just something that's kind of organically happened because obviously I self-published the very first edition of the Heavy Bag here in the UK. And then it was picked up by publishers around the world. I mean, it's been translated 16 times. Um, so there's been lots of different publishers, and they have wanted to have their own front cover, which was so that it could obviously be recognized in each country specifically. And then from there, they've decided to kind of add and incorporate different illustrations within. And they've all stuck with Larissa, which has just been amazing for her. It's because, she's amazing. She understands the brief. And we were both really kind of sort of protective of Enid, who's telling this story for the last, almost 4 years. So yeah, each country wanted a different front cover, and I think it's worked. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion around each one, but I have put my faith in the publishers. They know what they're doing, and I think that's when I've had to let go slightly because obviously from self-published to then becoming traditionally published, you do have to let go of a few things that you kind of had control of before.
What did you learn with that particular traditional contract? Because going from self-published to traditional, it's got to be a bit different than being traditionally signed straight away. What did you find that was different?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I'd seen this whole other side to begin with. I'd kind of thrown myself into um, that I'd been the author, and then the editor, and then the publisher, and I hadn't really taken on board those titles. I was still kind of seeing myself as just the writer, and it really took me a long time into this journey to actually think, actually, no, I'm the publisher of this as well. So there was contracts, there was foreign rights, negotiation, illustrations, there was marketing. So there was a lot that I think I was doing, but I was just doing it, if that makes sense, without actually thinking too much about it. It wasn't until I started working with other publishers that I thought, well, actually, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And it kind of made me really understand their decisions. But I actually learned a lot as well. I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. I'm in there. I'm in with these publishing houses. I'm in with these editors and people in marketing and translator. I'm going to take as much information as I can. And I've definitely learned a lot.
Mm. No, that's fantastic. I am curious because this book it's really needed, not just for children, but I think for the adults reading it with the children, I think it's just a concept that's going to work for so many different ages.
Yeah.
So, what's the best feedback you've had from people who've read your book?
I had one in the early days which has really stuck with me. And somebody messaged me. I get a lot of people message me on Instagram, just kind of in the moment, and it's really lovely because it's kind of like real world reviews, they're not putting them anywhere, they're just telling me. And I had one lady message me and she said that um she had an older son and a younger daughter, and they'd sadly lost her husband, their father, just before the pandemic. And she bought it for her daughter, who was about 8, 9, and they were sort of reading it with her. And then she'd left the book out, and she came down really early one morning, and she saw her 21-year-old son sitting at the table reading it, and he was really emotional. And then she came over and she started reading it, and it affected her in the same way. And she said, just wanted to let you know that. And I was just, well, I mean, I was an absolute wreck, I think, for a long time after, because I just couldn't believe, you write these books and you really hope that they're going to just touch somebody. And when you get that message just out of the blue, and in that cold, dark hours of a morning, there's a 21-year-old boy sitting there reading this book because he's lost his father. And it was just wow. And that was in the very early days, and I've never forgot that.
That's powerful, isn't it?
Mm,
You must feel like
yeah.
you've changed some lives out there as well, which is a beautiful
Yeah.
thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's just a huge honor. I mean, it's used within children's hospices. It's used by grief therapists. It's used at grief camps in the US. Um, and I can't. I can't actually put into words how it makes me feel sometimes, because I do get these just amazing messages. And it sometimes just feels a bit surreal that your words, your story, can have that effect on children. But yeah, I'm just, yeah, honored.
I think it's something very powerful that you've done. And I think a lot of people are just really grateful you've done it because you're helping a lot of people as well. Now, I am thinking about that 8-year-old who picked up your book, and that's going to be such a memory for her. Picture
Mm.
book memories for you there, Sarah. What were yours growing up?
Oh, so I think for me, it, not necessarily the actual book, but I think it's the moment of reading or being read to with an adult. I just remember having those stories read to me as a child by my parents and just wanting it to keep going. I always remember when, my parents would get to the end of the book and I think, oh no, this is it. I'm going to sleep now. And, I just want this story to keep going. And I think after but very early memories of after having a book read to me, I think I would say, you know, to my parents, well, can you keep going? And then they'd have to make a story from their mind. And so I just think that actual act of reading with a child is so powerful. And I think we don't quite get how amazing that is, until, it sort of happened to you as a child. And it's just that moment of sitting down together. And I think that's why for me, it's really important as an author that I, I can do as many events as possible. I've just recently done one at the local sort of city library, and it's just reading with children, but then it's just that conversation after, and you just it's almost like books unlock a part of the imagination, and then you just let them talk. And the things that come out are just amazing. I'm just, just so in awe of them when the children talk after this kind of huge event has happened. So I think it's just so important to read with children. But it is a luxury, and I get that as well. Time is of the essence now, and people are so busy, and we're all trying to do our best. It is really, really hard. So I think it's really important that as authors, children's authors, if we can, we kind of pick up part of that, I think.
Yeah, and it's not just for bedtime,
Right.
it can be any time of the day that you can
Yeah.
actually, and you don't have to. So what we do in our house is we have this thing called two-sentence story, and
Uh,
everyone takes just two sentences, and we build up on it. And we now do it with other people, like might be home on the train with a group of friends, and
yeah.
that's just how we do, or a campfire story. But I'm with you. It's not just the book;
Yeah.
it's the moment.
Yes. Yeah,
But it is
yeah,
also my wish for anyone who has a picture book out. But like clearly yours is making
yeah,
some lasting moments with kids.
yeah,
It's my dream for anyone who has a picture book that your picture book is someone's picture book memory, because I think that would
yeah,
just be really good. Yeah.
yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
you mentioned that you like doing school visits, library visits. So tell me about
yeah,
those.
yeah. So it's really important, I think, that we are reaching every child, and not every child goes to the library. Not every child has that library, that shelf of books at home. We know that, and that's for whatever reason. But I think it's so important that we can um, get into these schools, get into the libraries. These are free places for these children. The library is free, schooling is free. These children are there. Everything, all these resources should just be available to them. And it's lovely going into bookstores. And, that's just as wonderful. Bookstores doing an absolutely amazing job. But sometimes that is a bit of a privilege because, like I say, not every child gets taken into a bookstore and bought a book. So we have to go out and find them. So I just love going into schools. I mean, obviously the UK is a lot smaller than Australia, so it's a lot easier to physically go into schools. But I also do a lot of virtual visits as well. I think just before the summer holidays started here, a couple of weeks ago, I did a virtual reading of a new book, and it went out to all primary schools sort of up and down the country. And I just get lots of questions. And funny enough, the questions don't necessarily always surround the book. It's more about you being a writer. And I think that's amazing because children want to be inspired and they want to know that they can do this. So I think that's a really key part of talking to children in schools and libraries, not necessarily about your book. That's not what they always take away. It's about that they could become a children's author, they could be a writer one day.
Because everyone's stories are important. Is that's what I
Yeah,
like to tell. That's what I like
yeah,
to tell children. Your
yeah,
stories are
yeah,
important. They need to
yes,
be
yeah,
told. So if anyone in Australia or anywhere in the world would like to book you for an author visit virtually
yeah,
or in person, how can they
yes.
contact you?
So you can come to my website, which is hello sarahsurgey.com. You can email me at hello@sarahsurgey.com, or I'm on Instagram, Sarah Surgey Writer. So yeah, I just love getting back into the classroom. I mean, I was in the classroom working in education for about 20 years. So for me, as a preschool teacher, I just remember that I think for most situations with children, I was like, let's just go to the reading corner. Let's just grab a book. Let's just read this story. And that was when I could feel they had big emotions coming out, or they just wanted a bit of quiet time, or they needed to talk. I, without even realizing, just go to the book corner and just get the books out. So I know how important it is to have books in the classrooms. And not every school has a library as well. I mean, especially here in the UK, we don't all have libraries in our schools. So if we can get author visits in and we can talk to children about their writing, then I'm really happy to do that.
No, absolutely. So, anyone watching this video, Sarah is someone you really want to visit your classroom and also classrooms of all ages. Please don't think it's just for young, it's all ages because story is important and also learning the heavy book as well is important for children and teens out there, just learning about their feelings and how to talk to and just knowing that there's people that you can turn to when you need to
Yeah.
speak. And Sarah, just a final question. So,
Yeah.
anyone out there just dying to be you, do you have any words of advice?
um, okay, it is hard work. It is hard work, and we're kind of, as writers, authors, we're thrown crumbs from the publishing industry. You get a few little crumbs and you think, wow, this is it. And then you've just got to scramble again and just keep going. So my advice is to get in with the children's book writing community, and we call it the Kid Lit community. It's a hashtag, look for it, and it's the most supportive community that I've ever been part of, and it really does help. I can't emphasize enough how much peer support from other children's writers, no matter what stage, how important that support is. Because as someone once said, one best-selling book does not make you a top children's author. You start from scratch with every book and you have to keep going, and you just need those people there. And it's very much a kind of industry of rejection, acceptance, and that's really, really, really hard. So my advice would be to get in with the kidlit community, have that peer support, get those contacts because we all help each other with contacts, collaborations, and it will make things easier for you.
No, thank you so much. And I'm so happy the heavy bag is coming to Australia. And I'm really grateful for your time today to speak to me about your journey and speak about this amazing book coming to our country. I know there's so many people who are going to appreciate it, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity today. And for anyone watching this video, please contact Sarah, follow her on the socials, buy her books, review her books, check out the heavy bag, no matter what country you're in, there's plenty. And Sarah, I want to thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely, really lovely.
Thank you.